Hello everyone, my name is Ryan. I make music under the name Payette, and this video is going to be the first of what will hopefully become a series if I can stick with it. And in this series, I am going to be discussing why I love certain albums. And it's not going to be a review series. I feel like there are enough people on YouTube that are already reviewing albums and doing it very well, like The Needle Drop. So in this series, I'm going to be basically discussing my personal connection with certain records, more so than I am, analyzing them and giving them like a review score or anything like that. That's not the goal of this series. So apologies if I get a little bit rambly. That will be in part because I am not used to talking to the camera. This is a brand new YouTube channel. This is not my forte. And also, when I talk about stuff that I like, I tend to get a little bit long-winded. But I will try and do some snappy editing and keep this a little bit concise, if that's at all possible. So, the very first album that we'll be discussing in the series is ZABA by Glass Animals. Now, this is, I've listened to this album so many times. I was first introduced to Glass Animals because back in the day, so like 2013, 2014, what I used to do to discover new music was, typically I would be playing Destiny, because that was pretty big at the time. So I'd be playing that, and I'd be listening to Pandora, actually. Which I don't use so much anymore, but back in the day, when I was listening to Pandora, I could put on a radio station based on a band that I liked. I usually listened to like a lot of Cage the Elephant radio, and I think at one point even 21 Pilots radio, because that radio station, since that band is just such a blend of genres, there were just so many different kinds of music that ended up on that radio station, which was awesome. And one of the bands that came up was Glass Animals. And the first song that I heard was Black Mambo, which, it's maybe not the greatest indication of the sound of the record, but it was radio friendly enough that at the time my sort of undeveloped musical ears were interested by it. And so I went and I looked up the album just based on that one single, and I listened all the way through it, I remember, and I thought it was okay. It didn't grab me on my first listen. But after several repeated listens, it just grabbed its claws into me and just wouldn't let me go, it was just on repeat. And I think a lot of my favorite albums are kind of like that, where, they grow on me a little bit and then I just can't stop listening to them. And yeah, this record is certainly no exception to that. My personal favorite songs on the record have sort of changed over time. When I first listened to the record, I really enjoyed Black Mambo, just because that's sort of that was more in the wheelhouse of what I'd been listening to, the sort of alt-rock scene. But I started to get really, really, just curious about these songs that had all of this ambient noise and, it was just creating like these soundscapes. And, like in the transitions from Black Mambo into Pools, you get all those weird little noises that makes it sound like you're kind of in like a jungle or a rainforest, something along the lines of that. And the album cover backs that visual up a little bit, but yeah, I don't know, something about it was just so intriguing to me. And I just found myself, just laying in my bed with my headphones on, just with my eyes closed, just on a different planet almost, because I was just transported by this album. Okay, one thing that I need to say is that I have vivid memories of sharing this album with some of my friends, because back when I was really listening to this album, it was transitioning out of 2014 and 2015, and a pretty large group of my friends were pretty much only listening to rap at the time, which was fine. And I enjoyed rap at the time too. I do much more so now, but at the time I was mostly just into alternative rock. And so I had this sort of disconnect with the music my friends liked and the music that I liked, which is fine. You know, you're not always going to like the same stuff as your friends. But I remember I was driving with one of my friends, actually a couple friends in one of my friends' cars, and someone passed me the aux. And they're like, you know, like, play something that we haven't heard before. Like, don't play alternative rock. And I was like, okay, you know, I think I have something that you guys might like. And so I put on ZABA. I think I might have started with Hazy just because of, you know, the sort of hip-hop influence in that song. I figured it might catch over, or carry over between me and my friends, and I was right. Yeah, all of my friends that I played it for really enjoyed Glass Animals, because there's something about the group, especially on this first album, that, you know, it's such a successful combination of sounds. You know, it's not hip hop, it's not R&B, and it's not rock, definitely not rock, and it's not really pop either, but it's sort of maybe just a little bit of all of those. And I think that's what's really special about the record, you know. It's just this conglomeration of a bunch of different kinds of music that I like, you know, all sort of put together into this one vibey package. So besides just being an album that I really enjoyed listening to, ZABA has also definitely inspired the kind of music that I make. You know, recently I have been drawn to these sort of big, spacey choruses and vocals that have a ton of reverb and a ton of delay on them. I can also thank Tame Impala for, you know, influencing me in that way as well. But, you know, not only that, but I listened to this great podcast that I would, for any of you who enjoy this album, I would totally recommend you listen to it. It's called Tape Notes, and basically they had Dave, the lead singer and main songwriter and producer of Glass Animals, they had him break down 3 of the tracks from ZABA, and, you know, he was describing the way that he produced the album, and it was really inspiring to me because, for the most part, I mean, he made most of the songs with his laptop, and I mean, that's pretty much what I'm doing, you know? And the fact that he could create these, you know, these, like, auditory worlds that I was, like, living in almost, just on his laptop, you know, was awesome. It was so cool. So as far as my favorite tracks on the album are concerned, I would have to say that Hazy, Toes, and Pools are probably my top 3 in no particular order. Just because I feel like not only do those songs have really strong choruses, but all 3 of them have grooves that are just, you know, like, they're just powerful. You just turn them on and you just want to dance, you just want to vibe to them a little bit. And, you know, that's kind of what I hope to be able to express with my music someday. I want to be able to get to that point. So, to conclude, ZABA, definitely one of my favorite albums of all time. By no means would I say that it's a perfect album. There are a handful of tracks on it that I think are just okay. I don't think that they necessarily are terrible tracks. You know, I'm referring to maybe Walla Walla and Intrux, I guess, which are actually back-to-back, which is kind of funny. But I don't think either of those songs necessarily help the flow of the album. They don't add that much. Although I do think Walla Walla has a really good percussion groove on it, so that's definitely something that I enjoy about that track. But besides that, I mean, I guess that does it. You'll have to let me know in the comments if the sound quality is okay and all of that stuff. Just things that I can work on in the future. And give me any suggestions about anything else that I might do differently. I mean, I am by no means a professional filmmaker, and also I don't quite have the same, super outgoing personality as a lot of the other YouTubers that I watch. But I hope that to some extent this video was enjoyable for you, and if it was, give me some feedback. I love stuff like that. Even if it's not positive feedback, it's okay. I can take it. All right, yeah, I'll see you guys in the next one.